fine. Okay, next question. Anthony and Sarah, this is a bit of a wild question, I guess, but how do you speak to yourself when you're really struggling on a climb or really suffering in a race? I've noticed that my young lad, who's 16 and a promising rider, really quickly descends into negative self-talk when the going gets tough. Any tips to help him? I really believe that your words to yourself are important.
For me, preparation has always been the antidote to that. If negative self-talk creeps in for me, it's always because of cut corners, my preparation. And I'm like, oh, I'm suffering on this climb and no one else is suffering because I cut corners and they didn't cut corners. But if you go to a race and you show up and you know you've been on point with all the, training, recovery, diet, there's great preparation in that. But failing that, I think, start off just recognizing that he is talking negatively about himself.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it. It's it's kind of second nature, this negative inner monologue.
Yeah.
And this self-talk. You get into a negative circle but you don't actually realize that you do. So I think that's definitely a really important thing to do.
Like you talked in the last one about your training peaks and adding stuff into it. I would diary that in your training peaks, or if you don't want your coach seeing it, put it in a separate diary. But I would catalogue that. What are you saying? When are you saying it? And then I would teach him to start turning negative talk into slightly more positive or neutral talk. Like instead of, I can't keep this pace, they're riding away from me. That's like a total uncontrollable. To go with the stoic, control your controllables. Say, okay, let me focus on my breath. Let me focus on, the rhythm of the pedal stroke. Focus on something you can control. So focusing on the process rather than the outcome. Like he mentioned a climb, if it's going up a climb, you can only ride A to B as fast as you can up a climb. So focusing on, I'm getting dropped, I'm riding away from people, it's not always that helpful. Where if you focus on the breath, the rhythm, your watts, if you're using a power meter, that's a lot more helpful for me. Mantras is not something I've ever used, but I've worked with sports psychologists in the past who are huge on mantras, like repeating stuff like, I can keep the pace, I can keep the pace. And another useful tip that I got from a sports psychologist, and he'd worked with a lot of Grand Tour riders, was he pushed his thumb and his forefinger together. But he'd done this at various points throughout the year. So the rider in question, he'd be at an altitude camp where he's away from his wife and kids for 4 weeks. And multiple times during the altitude camp, he'd push his thumb and finger together. Remember, okay, the sacrifice I'm making here. When everyone's out for a nice dinner and he has to eat a very calorie controlled meal, he's pushing his thumb and forefinger together. And then in the race, when it comes that key moment to deliver his team leader to the bottom of the Tourmalet, and the legs are hurting and everyone's like, doesn't want to be doing it because they're in the third week of a Grand Tour, it's 38 degrees. He pushes his thumb and his forefinger together and it brings back to him all the memories of all the sacrifices he made, and they were all just for this one moment.
Wow.
And I thought that's pretty cool.
That's
I've never
really
actually
powerful.
used it, but it's really cool.
That's really powerful. Yeah, I think for this guy, he's 16. I think you want to start building self-confidence. So this kind of setting goals, achievable goals, and hitting markers along the way to a bigger goal can give you that self-confidence as well. So you're kind of like, okay, well, I did X last week, which was tough and almost killed me. I got through that. I can get through this. So writing down like 3 smaller goals and on the way to a big goal, I think is really good, because that will also give you that boost every time you think, I'm going to fail, I can't do this. You think, well, did you know what? I did this really, really tough thing yesterday. I can do this really tough thing today. Yeah.
But peer comparison is really dangerous at that age. Like I remember playing football at that age, and we all get, especially lads, we get testosterone at vastly different stages in our development. And the difference it makes getting that testosterone bang, like you're playing football at 15, 16, some lads have a beard and a mustache, and other lads are like 12-year-olds, they're total children, they've no muscle definition. And then they catch up. So it's not just like, we're all going to get it at some point, but maybe in 1 year's time, he's going to be the best rider in the entire category or the entire national federation. But at the moment, he just hasn't had that growth spirit that some of his peers have had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just kind of keep him at this. It's obviously a sport that he's found that he loves. So try and keep him at it. Do your best to keep him training. One more thing before we move on from this question is a couple of really good books if he's a reader. And if he's not a reader, definitely maybe download Audible so he can listen to it when he's on the bike. Relentless is a great book, From Good to Great. to Unstoppable by Tim Grover. That's
I never read that one.
yeah, it's a bestseller. He's a renowned performance coach for athletes like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. So
We need to get him on the podcast.
we do. And then there's another one, Think Like a Warrior, the 5 inner beliefs that make you unstoppable. And it's just basically using this warrior archetype to kind of give
That's cool.
tips and tricks to when you're in those dark moments to turn around your conversations that you're having with yourself.
I like that. Have you used these?
Yes, of course I do.
I would throw in Steve Peters' chimp paradox into that as well.
Yeah, that is brilliant. That really makes you kind of understand why these random negative thoughts pop in and how you can deal with them.
Yeah, I had Sean Conway on the podcast recently. I don't think it's been released yet. It's coming out next week.
It's coming out soon.
And Sean has the world record for most number of Ironman. So he went 105 Ironman races in 105 consecutive days. But he talked about these different personas he has, and he realized that he has a chimp persona and he has, I think it was like a hare persona or something. So one needs to chase things and one needs to fidget.
Wow.
But he realized he can't conform to normal societal stereotypes of having a job, having, a pretty consistent 9-to-5 daily routine, because these two alter egos he have just pull him in different directions. So he has the chimp that's fidgeting. He wants to always fix cars and be building shelves and playing with his hands. But every now and then, the chimp needs to take a back seat for the hare to chase something. And he needs to do these wild adventures to silence the hare. Because if he doesn't silence the hare, he can't do anything. His life is just gets taken over by this need to go.
It's amazing. It's not. I love people who have taken the time. Now, if you're a long distance runner, an ultra distant runner, an Ironman, or any endurance athlete, you do have that time, little bit of time for self-reflection and trying to figure out, I'm a tiger.
Less than you think, though. I think people overplay that, how much head time you have to think on the bike. I don't really think of anything when I'm on the bike.
Really? Yeah. Like your mind doesn't go in. Oh, I do. I'm very much.
I'm focused on the effort.
Yeah. No,
Maybe you're riding too easy.
I get very contemplative on the bike. But yeah, I love that. Like actually, and that's probably a good tip for this young guy as well. Like it's starting to understand how your brain works. And yeah, that Chimp Paradox book is a brilliant
He's
way.
only 16, like.
Yeah.
I think I was playing computer games.
You're a dumbass when you were 16. I didn't know you, but I'm guessing. I'd say you were.
You can't say that.
Okay.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please click up here. There's another video I know that you're absolutely going to love. And click over here and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our amazing upcoming guests.